questions about the potential impact of Judge Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation relative to the court's credibility. Let's bring in MSNBC political analyst Rick Tyler, former Cruz campaign spokesperson, Joe Watkins, former White House aide to President George H.W. Bush, Zerlina Maxwell, director of progressive programming for SiriusXM and an MSNBC political analyst. She previously worked for the Clinton campaign, and Cornell William Brooks, former president and CEO of the NAACP. Welcome to you all. Cornell, to you first here. Your view as a Democrat, sir. How do you think Kavanaugh's anticipated confirmation will impact the perceptions of the court, will reflect the concerns of Justice Kagan there?
It's very troubling. The Kavanaugh confirmation has really been a process of delegitimation of American women and the court itself. That is to say, where you have a confirmation process, the conclusion of which is predicated on an FBI report where FBI agents declined to, or I should say, were kept from talking to the accused, to corroborating witnesses, and to the alleged victim. Kavanaugh arrives on the court having been delegitimized by a process set up to help him. The fact of the matter is that the voices of American women were not heard. Think about this. He was alleged to have placed his hand over the mouth of Dr. Blasey Ford in high school. In effect, this process has placed its hand, if you will, over the mouths, over the voices, concerns of American women all across this country. And so it has been a delegitimizing process, a very partisan process, a very political process. And American women and men who believe American women have every right to call into question the legitimacy of not only the process, but the legitimacy of this new justice on the court.
But, Rick, does that fall along partisan lines? Will Kavanaugh change Republicans' perceptions of the Supreme Court or not?
Will Kavanaugh change the perception of
Republicans' perceptions of the Supreme Court in terms of its impartiality?
Well, look, half the country believes one thing and half the country believes the other. I mean, that's not really new. I don't believe that the court is delegitimized because a conservative is appointed to the court, and this is a result of an election. And yes, this does occur during a political process. The appointment of a Supreme Court justice is inherently political, and you saw that. And what I think has happened is the Democrats did what they always do when things are going their way. They overreach. Steve Kornacki just went through it. You had the Senate was actually in play. It doesn't look to be now. The House is probably still going to go Democratic, but it's not as strong anymore because people have made up their mind. And I think Susan Collins' reasoning for her vote was reasoned and sober. And we have to understand that there has to be a presumption of innocence. And people who don't understand that there's a presumption of innocence shouldn't be serving on the Judiciary Committee.
Can I ask you, though, Rick,
Sure.
you say that the Supreme Court is a political entity because of the way things are chosen, people are chosen, rather, justices are chosen. We
Yes.
get that. But Elena Kagan last night said something, the last line of which, it is not an extension of politics, but instead somehow above the fray. So does this body makeup of these 9, in the wake of everything we have seen this week, in the last several weeks, will it be able to stay? Will it stay above the perceived fray?
It all depends on if people want to denigrate the court the way the Trump administration has denigrated the Justice Department and the FBI. And so, look, I think Susan Collins had it right. And Merrick Garland was denied a vote, and I think that was wrong. He should have had a vote. But he's not 180 degrees out of phase with Justice Kavanaugh, with Judge Kavanaugh, soon to be Justice Kavanaugh. He's 90 degrees. They're 90 degrees together. They're 10 degrees out of phase. So all this talk about overturning Roe v. Wade, that's not the way the court works. They don't get together and say, oh, let's return to Roe v. Wade and overturn it. Having a conservative on the court, it means that we do look at precedent. We don't upend the court. We look at past decisions. And as Kavanaugh has said, Roe v. Wade is established law. I disagree with it. But I don't think he's going to get in there and as one justice is going to be able to overturn Roe v. Wade. I just don't think that's going to happen.
I'm not even going to ask you a question, Zerlina, because you've been shaking your head. Just go.
I love Rick, and we come on every week, and we have ideological differences, but I have to push back strongly. The way that it will work when Justice Kavanaugh is confirmed confirmed if they vote later today to do that, is there are bills in state houses right now ready to be passed. For example, in Iowa, there is a heartbeat bill that essentially says as soon as you can hear the fetal heartbeat, that means that you cannot have an abortion after the fact. Many women don't even know they are pregnant at that point. It outlaws access to abortion and many forms of contraception and IUDs. So the idea that you have to actually completely overturn Roe v. Wade is actually a red herring, because in practice, that's not how it's going to work for American women who already in states like Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, because of trap laws, another hindrance to access to reproductive health care, they are not going to be able to go and get their birth control pills. Plan B. And so this is something that is broader than
Plan B is
just
not
abortion.
a birth control pill, but okay, I hear your point.
It affects birth control pills because Republicans have actually put that in the category of an abortifacient. They categorize it as something that actually induces an abortion, which you know is scientifically untrue, but these bills actually outlaw access to that.
But
Rick.
Zerlina, scientifically, if you're looking at the pro-choice, pro-life movement, the pro-life movement, well, I say, life begins at conception.
No, it does not, Rick. And every single woman that has IVF treatments
every time I argue with someone on this issue, then my question is,
not a person.
Then tell me when life begins, because that's the fundamental question. This is about people who believe in pro-life believe it is a taking of a life.
And they should be able to make their own personal decision.
Yes,
it is
so
not up to you or the government to tell women what they should believe and how they should access health care.
Abortion this is a very long discussion, but at a minimum, we should be able to discuss when life begins. I'll go first. I believe it is at conception.
I disagree with you, Rick.
Okay,
and in
when
your
does it
life,
begin?
If you ever have the choice to have a terminated pregnancy,
when does it begin? Give me a 9-month window. Give me a month. Give me a week. Give me something. When does it begin?
Viability. The court has already established when
what's viability? A child who's preemie who comes out is less viable than
a child who's Do we call a fertilized egg in a
petri
dish when somebody is getting IVF a baby? No, we don't. No, we don't.
That's disagree.
There are so many voices going right now, and a very heartfelt and passionate and important discussion
about the court.
But I want to bring you into this, Joe. You've been quiet
here. It's deeper than an ideological conversation.
But
this is about bodies. And also, I just have to add, Alex, one more thing. You know, this conversation about abortion, it is not separate and distinct from the conversation about sexual assault. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. I've actually had to go and get Plan B to ensure that I did not have to have my child. And in 30 states, the rapist can actually sue for parental rights and child custody in the year 2018, Alex. And so the idea that this conversation is theoretical and that we should have an ideological conversation on air when it actually is something that has to do with my physical bodily autonomy, it's disgusting to me.
Okay, look, I'm going to have that be the last word and just tell you, Zerlina, as a friend, that when I just heard that, I just got a zing to my heart because the pain of what you had to endure. That said, Joe, you've been quiet here. You listen to the rhetoric back and forth between Rick and Zerlina, for example, let alone the bigger picture here. And we're all friends, but Republicans, are they breathing a sigh of relief today? Or is there a sense of unease about how we have gotten to where we are ahead of this vote this afternoon?
Well, I'm a Republican. I'm also an African American. I'm a black man. If I get stopped by a police officer, he's more likely going to see, or she is going to see me more likely as an African American than they are as a Republican. So what I care about is having a court that doesn't tilt left or tilt right, but just tilts toward justice and fairness. And I want justices who are not left-leaning or right-leaning or Republican-inspired or Democrat-inspired, but rather people who are just justice-inspired. So if there was anything that I took away from Senator Collins' talk yesterday, it had to do, what I really liked was the fact that she said, in her study, and she obviously did a lot of studying, Merrick Garland, the same thing that Rick said, Merrick Garland agreed with Judge Brett Kavanaugh 93% of the time on their decisions. And so maybe we know that this justice is going to be confirmed today. I mean, there's almost, we're sure that he's going to win confirmation today. Mm-hmm. The hope is that he's not just a blind vote for the right, or that he's not a political vote, that he's a justice, that he's somebody who metes out justice, who divides the law rightly, who does right by human beings. Without regard to color, without regard to gender, who loves human beings and does right by them. That's what we're hoping.
That's where